Hello, Curious K podcast listeners. It's your favorite host, Kolapo, and I'm happy to be back with another amazing episode, to ignite your curiosity. As you know, on Curious K podcast, we always stay curious. And today, we are having a great conversation with Gerald Black, an entrepreneur, an ecosystem builder extraordinaire. So Gerard Black has many hats he's wearing. He's the head of go-to-market at Hancock. That is a fintech startup that recently closed the seed round of 2.4 million US dollars, and the community manager at Black Ops. And he has in hands in other interesting things, which we'll definitely get into in the course of this episode. And on today's podcast, we'll be exploring Gerald's journey as an entrepreneur. Gerald has built a couple of startups and exited some, and we'll explore his role at Anchor and Black Ops and talk about other interesting things. So without further ado, let's welcome Gerald Black to the Curious K podcast. Welcome, Gerald Black. Thank you for joining us today on Curious K podcast. It's an honor to have you on the show.
Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah. And how are you doing today?
Yeah, I'm well. I'm curious.
I like that. All right. So let's just get into your
so fast. So can you just share with us?
your entrepreneurial journey and maybe some of the key milestones along the way.
Okay, awesome. So I think my entrepreneurial journey started when I was in the university, 2012. I was supposed to be on internship, the compulsory internship you do while in school. Because I studied computer engineering, right? So I was supposed to be on internship at the time, but for some reason I decided to, venture into entrepreneurship and start my own thing, right? Because I've always been fascinated by the idea of solving a problem, building a product, just doing something and seeing people's problem being solved and making money for it, right? Offering value and earning something while at it, right? So I started my first company called WeFix, 2012.
So you're still in school then?
Yes, I was in school. I was on internship.
Okay.
Yeah, so I had like 6 months to myself, and I decided to, do something and just experiment and see how it goes. Right. So I started WeFix, and WeFix was a facility management company at the time, because then my dad and a couple of people around me would always be looking for artisans, like they want to fix things. They're looking for who can they call. And it was always an issue, right? So I saw the loophole and I felt, okay, you know what? I can actually help people solve this problem, right? So I can go out there and get these artisans and be the one person that they call when they need a carpenter, an electrician, a plumber, whoever it is they need. They just call one person and I can make it happen, right? So it wasn't tech. It was just, a regular startup, just running a company and trying to solve that problem, right? So yeah, it started off good. And we at the time we even started working for banks and hotels, bigger companies.
Wow.
We grew
That's cool.
from just starting from school to actually running an actual business, right? And then fast forward to 2015, I relocated to Lagos. I had my, the compulsory NYSC again. Yeah, so I so I relocated to Lagos, right? And I was really excited, right? I was looking out for opportunities to network and meet with people, right? So I signed up on a platform. I can't remember what it's called, but it's just like Eventbrite, where
Okay.
it gives you suggestions, it tells you about events. And I stumbled on one that was a tech event. It looked interesting, and I said, "Oh, I need to attend this." Right? That was 2015. So I went to the event, and that was my first exposure to, you can actually build a tech company. Right? That was the moment where I got that pivotal mindset shift, and it hit me like, wow, I can actually build a company that leverages technology to solve problems and all of that, right? And then I had the pivot from WeFix, and then I decided to move it to ifixng.com, right? ifixng. And yeah, so we pivoted from running a regular company to running an online platform, where people could hire plumbers, electricians online, like Uber for artisans, that type of thing, right? And
Okay.
yeah, so that went slightly well. We got some family and friend round funding, pre-seed investment, and we actually launched, right? But not before long. I think we ran it for about a year and a couple months. We realized that we're way ahead of our time, right? Because where we stay, Nigeria, people are not, even now, but way back then, people were not really fascinated by the idea of going to hire a plumber. Like, that's not the first thing you think about when you want to hire an artisan. You won't think of, oh, what website can I go to? You call people you know, you call your family, you call your friends, because we are very culture driven and there's a lot, right? So adoption was slow. I realized that, oh, okay, this is not what we should be building at this time, right? And then we pivoted again to Packet, right? That was in 2018. Pivoted to Packet. Now, Packet was, we started off with setting up a car wash, partnering with the malls. And, because of the problem we're trying to solve at that time, giving people professional vehicle care service that is affordable and, in a very convenient way, right? So we partnered with the mall, and then we set it up there, and not before long. In fact, adoption was instant, right? Because it's a no-brainer. People drive into the mall and, they see a spot where they could go, oh, Packets, look at their setup there. You drive in there, you go do your grocery shopping, you come back, you pick up your vehicle, and you move, right? So it was a no-brainer from day one. We already had paying customers,
That's cool.
from day one, right? So again, it makes sense to leverage technology in expanding the scope and expanding our reach as well, right? So we decided to build a platform. We built a platform for both managing our in-house inventory, signing up customers, managing customer database, and then we now extended it to an external platform where people can even see the nearest location to them, because we expanded really fast, because of which in a way was good and bad, right? If we have time, maybe I'll touch on that. But we expanded really fast. Like in the first 1 year, we already had 3 locations, right? So we had to look for a way to
This was all
leverage.
in Lagos. All the
This was
locations
all
in
in
Lagos.
Lagos. Yes, in the
Okay.
first 1 year. In the first 1 year, it was in Lagos, right? So we had to think of a way to quickly leverage technology, to make it seamless for customers to pay, drive in, look for the nearest location to them, make payment, drive in, get their wash, and then move without a lot of human interaction and trying to make payments at the booths and all of that, right? So, and the adoption was great. It went well. We got some investment for that as well. And not before long, fast forward 3 years later in 2021, we got approached by the CAS 45 team that eventually set up Fixie 45. CAS 45 was focused on, it was an auto tech platform that focused on buying and selling, right? But then
Yeah.
they launched vehicle care, vehicle after sales service, which included like repairs. They wanted to make it a wholesome 360 service, right?
Okay.
So yeah, so we got acquired by them,
Wow,
and
that's cool.
prior to that, we already had a relationship, right? They were our customers, because when they buy these vehicles from people that want to sell their vehicles, they bring it to one of our locations, we touch it off, we make it look clean, and then they take it to one of their showrooms, to sell it and all, right? So we already had that relationship ongoing. And then at the time when they now decided to launch Fixie 45, it was a no-brainer, right? And we got acquired, and we also joined their team in building Fixie 45, right? So yeah, this is my story summarized. I don't want to
That
take too much of your time.
yeah,
Yeah, but
yeah,
that's
that's cool. I
yeah.
think that's a really beautiful story. So in terms of the acquisition, can you share numbers? is it like millions of dollars? So we know what is
No,
happening in terms of acquisition, right?
no, I will share that my skill.
All right. All right. That's a really beautiful story, right? Now you're with Anchor, right? So I want to understand, I mean, your transition from being a founder, right? You're working with Anchor now as a head of the go-to market, at Anchor. So you've been building, I mean, based on what you shared, you've built like two startups now. Now you're moving to go work with a fintech company. What was that transition like? Because looking at your trajectory, I mean, someone would think, okay, you want to go start something else, but at this point you're joining an existing startup. So can you share with that what informed that decision?
Okay. Yeah, so at the point, at which I eventually moved to Fixie 45, I was leading business development and sales. I was actually the vice president for business development at Fixie 45, right? And there was something that instantly hit me, which is the fact that a lot of founders need help in, building their businesses, right? And that's even coming from the angle of who would I rather have? Would I rather have someone who has that entrepreneurial mindset and can take complete ownership of whatever role that has been assigned, right? So because I had that entrepreneurial mindset and judging from my past experience as an entrepreneur, I noticed that whatever role I took on, I just took complete ownership of it, and you know I just ran with it without so much dependencies, right? So this was pretty much what also informed the decision to, appoint me as head of go-to-market at Anchor, right? And while it was particularly interesting for me was, I'm sure you've heard the saying 1,000 times that every company is eventually going to become a fintech, right? And Anchor, at the time and even till now, was sitting at a very core position where they'll be facilitating a lot of those things happening, right? So it was exciting to see that, oh, wow, this is the company that will be making a lot of these things happen, empowering companies to launch financial products, embed financial products on their platform, right? So it was a no-brainer for me, right? So something I was really, really excited to see, right? And also judging from my experience as an entrepreneur, that was why the role head of go to market was given to me, right? Because I could approach things and see things from that point of view, which is actually what we needed at that time, right? So as opposed to someone who you have to tell what to do and say, okay, let's try this. You can take on ownership and look at things strategically without so much dependencies and all of that, right? So this is pretty much how I transitioned from, Fixie 45 and then moving to Anchor.
All right, interesting. Because I think I work with founders, right? And I work with some founders that their startup, the startup they're building out, it was like maybe the second startup or the first startup fresh out of the university. All right, they don't really have experience working with
Yeah,
corporate. All right. And for them, they'd be like, no, I don't want to work for anybody. I will be an entrepreneur. I will always be an entrepreneur,
yeah,
which is a very interesting mindset. But there is also a story like that I like to share. Yeah, I have a boss of blessed memory. His name is Innocent Chukuma, and he has a very beautiful story. It started like a foundation. It's called Clean Foundation, Center for Law Enforcement and Education in Nigeria, one of the biggest NGOs, right, in
okay.
Nigeria. I started that in like 1998, I think, or 97, and it ran it for 15 years, right? And after 15 years, he left, to lead Ford Foundation as a West African director,
Oh,
right?
wow.
And I remember, I mean, having one-on-one conversation with him or during meetings, and it's just, I think it's about humility, right? Of being a founder and understanding you have to learn, or where exactly do you want to drive impact? Because imagine you running like one of the biggest foundations in Nigeria. I mean, they have like grants pipelines of millions of dollars. You're good, right? Can be like, I'm not interested in why do I want to go and work for Ford Foundation? Me too, I would rather build, something like that,
Mm.
But I think my conversation with him, I learned about like the humility that founders can have. Your impact doesn't necessarily have to be about this is what I have to build. I have to be the one always driving the ship.
Absolutely.
It's all about me. And I kind of just I kind of connected that to your story as well. In terms of like the opportunity you see in the fintech space, and how you wanted to just be a part of that and not necessarily you know, being the founder, right? But you believe in that vision, and you're happy to, to be part of the team. So thank you, Gerald, for sharing that story. You know,
Thank you.
yeah. So let's move into your role. So can you tell us about your role? You mentioned you're the head of go-to-market at Anchor. So what are the responsibilities there? And maybe you can give us a background into what Anchor is doing as well.
Okay. So I think I'll start with the background. So Anchor is a banking as a service provider, right? And what that typically means is we empower brands with all the tools and resource that they need. We empower companies with all the tools and resource that they need to build and launch financial products, right? So whether it be APIs, SDKs, whatever it is that they need, right, to embed on their already existing platform, right? Because they've been able to identify a need, right, to either prefer a financial solution or launch, a full-fledged banking product. Whatever it is that they're looking at achieving, we are the go-to to empower that, right? So we offer APIs for issuing accounts, APIs for carrying out money movement, transfers, APIs for issuing credits. So we have all these APIs, right? And basically companies come to us, they consume our APIs, and they're able to launch in just a couple of days, right? So that's pretty much what we do at Anchor. Now, speaking about my day-to-day at Anchor as head of go-to-market, it's funny, right? Because a lot of times people, when I tell people I head go-to-market, they usually ask, oh, they've not heard that before. What is it, right? But go-to-market is simply, in a nutshell, right? Figure out how we're going to take this thing to market, as the name implies, right? So whether it be from a strategic point of view in terms of how you want to approach market penetration, from sales acquisition point of view, how are you able to prospect, who are the people we should be targeting, who is our ideal customer profile, what do we sell to them, what is the unique value proposition, all of these things, right, actually sits on the table of someone that leads go to market. There's also a little bit of marketing and operations, right, because you also have to be able to constantly communicate and convey the message of what you're trying to solve, right, and also be responsible for the entire sales cycle end to end, right, until the customer starts transacting, and even hand holding them when transacting to be sure they are enjoying the relationship, right? So most times you see that companies that are just starting off, but as the company now begins to, as company becomes bigger and things start getting serious, a lot more serious, the role now breaks down into multiple smaller roles. Like you have someone now heading sales, you have someone heading um, operations, you have someone heading all of these things, right? So that's pretty much what head of go-to-market actually implies, and this is what I do at Anchor today.
All right. Yeah. So let's move into like the fintech industry, right? So based on your work at Anchor, how do you see like the industry evolving? I mean, Anchor is definitely trying to solve a problem, like you mentioned. All businesses will eventually be a
Absolutely.
fintech business.
Absolutely.
You guys are already building that APIs. So what are the opportunities right now in terms of maybe like the adoption, the growth, and the challenges, that you still anticipate in that space, in the near future?
Okay, I must tell you, right, as someone who came from a non-fintech background, coming to fintech, it's been really exciting, right? Because what I've seen happening in the last couple of months that I've been with Anchor, almost a year now, is everybody now eventually identifies an opportunity to expand their offerings and even see it as a way of also expanding their revenue streams, right? I mean, this is away from the core focus, which is actually solving a problem. But they've also seen and identified that, oh, there are other ways that we can actually be generating revenue, right? And now you see someone who has a platform, and it's quite exciting to see, right? So someone has an already existing platform. Let me use an example, maybe a beauty marketplace where you can buy beauty products, right? And not before long, you hear them say, oh, I think we should integrate bills payment on this platform since people already have a wallet and they're able to top up their wallet. So whatever it is that they have remaining in that wallet after making expenses, they might choose to buy airtime, and it's very exciting, right? So now what we now see is platforms are now becoming, whether they are core fintech platforms or not, they are now becoming distribution channels for financial products, right? And at the end of the day, it's a win-win, right? Because they are solving problems for themselves in a way that they are able to generate additional income by offering these services. And they are also helping to deepen financial footprints, financial inclusion footprints, in a way that people can now easily access different kinds of financial products, whether it be investments or taking credits. Because I'll give you an example. In maybe 5 years ago, we never had anything called buy now, pay later, which is a form of credit, right? But now you have a lot of platforms offering buy now, pay later, right?
Yeah.
So whether you like it or not, right, it's right there in your face. So now you are now included in that entire footprint financially, right? Because you're now able to access credits. And in a way, it helps with your credit scoring, that if you have good payments, if you're able to pay back and you have good records for payment and all of that, it helps build your financial credit, it helps build all of these things, right? So we're seeing little tiny bits where fintech is now moving beyond just core fintech platforms to now becoming, entire it's now getting integrated in entire platforms, whether it be fintech or not. And it's really exciting to see, right? And I see that is where we're now beginning to move towards, right? Where people are now beginning to identify and they can say to themselves that, oh, I don't have to have a core fintech platform before I can include or embed financial products on my platform, right? And that way, you're able to generate more income, you're able to help drive financial inclusivity and all of that, right? It's really, really exciting to see.
Great. Yeah. So you also manage the community at Blacksop, right? And the first time I heard the name Black Ops, I thought you guys were involved in some kind of maybe clandestine operations.
I get that all the time.
You know, maybe a top government military project. You guys. All right. But I mean, tell us what you do at Black Ops, what Black Ops is all about, and maybe what do you do? What are the things you do in terms of managing that community as well?
Okay. So I'll just walk you through that journey, right? How I even joined Black Ops in the first place, and then I'll now narrow it down to what I do, right? So I met Sheni Sulaiman is actually the founder of Black Ops. I met Sheni for the first time, I think in 2015 when I just came to Lagos. He had something interesting he was building for startups, but he was just someone I knew from a distance, right? Sheni Sulaiman of Andela. Then he used to work with Andela, right? But we never had so much interaction after then. And then fast forward to 2020, was that last year? I think earlier last year, 2022, maybe January or February. Yes, January, February 2022. I met him at an event, right? Someone's birthday party I was invited to, and I met Sheni. And at that time, I had just left Fixie 45. And, post acquisition, I worked for a while. And then, I decided to take a break, just to rest, because building can be very intense and hard. And sometimes you just want to take a break from everything, right? So I was on break, and then I met Sheni at an event, right? And I was like, hey, the last time we spoke was maybe 2016 or so. It was really exciting to see him, right? And so I asked him what he's been up to. I think at the time he had left Andela. Yes, obviously he had left Andela, and then he was building Black Ops, right? So I asked what he was up to. He told me about Black Ops, about, what the problem they were trying to solve was, which was, basically building a support system for operators across venture back startups, tech startups, obviously, right? Building a community where operators can converge and get resources, learn from each other, and just basically get general support, right? The idea of it was really, because prior to that time, actually, I never understood who operators were. And for the sake of your listeners, I'll just maybe summarize. Operators are those who are non-tech in tech, right? So you have your sales guys, you have people in operations, you have people in development, you have people in human resource, so everyone who is not technical in a tech setting within a tech startup is actually referred to as an operator. So if you're a salesperson, you're an operator. If you're a marketing person, you're an operator, right? So that was the first time I got a glimpse of who an operator was, and it dawned on me that, oh wow, I've actually pivoted from being a founder to now being an operator, right? And of course, operators need a lot of support system because a lot of us are working in silos, right? People don't have as much support, like communities. But when you look at developers, you look at founders, they have a lot of communities that help, and they can, constantly and actively seek support. A lot of peer-to-peer and learning interactions happen. But I prior to that time, I never heard about anything, similar. So I really got, excited about the idea. And, but that was basically where the conversation ended, right? And I think a couple months later, that same year, last year, maybe July or so, I saw on his LinkedIn that, and don't forget, at that point, I wasn't really doing anything because I was just resting and all, right. So I saw on his LinkedIn that he was trying to hire someone to come manage, the community and help with programming and all of that, right. And I picked interest instantly, right. And don't forget, I had his number, right. So I reached out to him privately. I saw this, right? Is it still open? Is it something we can have a conversation around? I don't mind coming on board, right? And that was basically how, I was able to join. We had a couple of conversations. Shani can be very thorough, right? So we had actual interview sessions and, and all of that, right? And then I came on board the community as the community manager, right? Helping drive engagement, helping drive activities within the community, programming, and just basically ensuring that nobody is left behind, right? And everyone can get value from the community, right? So that's basically what Black Ops is about, and that is what I do at Black Ops today.
Well, that's really interesting, right? I remember, was it earlier this year or sometime, I was talking with a friend, about like networking sessions kind of, and he's a growth marketing manager. Damilola, we used to be a co-founder of a startup I worked on some year back. Shout out to you, Dami. And we're having a similar conversation in terms of like that community, right? For people, working as operators and startups. For example, now if a startup is trying to hire maybe like a growth a growth manager, for example, how many of those growth managers do you have in Nigeria? For example, for those that are there, who are the other maybe growth managers that they know in their network. So I really believe, I mean, this platform, it's really amazing in terms of what you're doing and how you're bringing people together. So like, how many operators do you have on the platform now?
So we're a little shy of 50 today and that's very intentional, right? Because we are very, very picky in
Okay.
terms of, we're very thorough, in terms of who we onboard in the community and the kind of value that they bring, right? So today the Black Ops community is actually focused on senior operators, right, across these venture back startups, right? So you have to be senior, like maybe senior manager upwards, and you have to have ample years of experience as an operator, right? Because what we're doing is we're intentionally putting together resource people that have experience, years of experience as an operator across various verticals, right? And eventually we're hoping that this will act as a resource pool for emerging operators, right, who want to be mentored or who are seeking, basically, trying to learn and, get mentorships and all of that, right? So today we are very thorough in our selection process, and, we just want to be sure that we're able to have top operators in the room. And our members, we have comprised of members across both Lagos, both Nairobi, Ghana, and a couple of them in the UK as well, right? So that's pretty much about Black Ops.
All right, great. Yeah, so Gerald, this has really been an exciting conversation. But as we round up, is there any other thing you would like to share with us?
I would just like to add that so the entire idea and the entire concept of we doing what we do, especially as Black Ops today, is we're trying to push the narrative that operators should be given their flowers, right? I think you were at our last event that happened last month, right? I think that was the first of that kind of event that will be happening. And the basic idea is, we're shining the light on operators, because people don't really know and appreciate who operators are, right? So whether you're working in any company, your first identity, especially if what you're doing is, operator related, your first identity is you're an operator before you now say, okay, you are working here, right? So you're an operator who is working in XYZ, right? And we feel like you shouldn't do it alone. You should have support system. So basically that's what we are aiming at, and that's basically what we're trying to drive.
Yeah, absolutely. I used to hear this like it's hard to build, but it's harder to sell.
Yes.
And when you have to sell, you need the operators, right? You need the talent,
Absolutely.
that's going to bring in the right set of people, that will sell. Great work, Gerald. It's really been an amazing conversation. Thank you very much for being on Curious K podcast.
Thanks for having me, Kate. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you everyone for listening. I hope you enjoyed this episode, and see you guys soon. Bye-bye.